All right, good morning, everybody. This is Friday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. Every Friday, I talk to Hansson Hindenburg from Baytown Tires, and sometimes he gives us some really good information on how to make our tires last longer, how to make our ride better and safer on the highway. Good morning, Hansson. How are we doing today, sir?
Every time.
Every time, not always. Sometimes, every time. You're right about that. Because here's something I've noticed, and I bought some tires last week because mine had about 50,000 miles on them. One of them decided to go away. It decided to separate on me, and I said, well, let me go buy some new tires. And what a difference new tires make between old tires. I'm talking about smooth ride. I used to go down Star Avenue, and it used to beat me to death. Those little ridges you get. Something where the big trucks are just used to beat me to death. Put the new tires on there, I don't even feel those on the road anymore. It's just so much smoother. Big difference.
It really does. After about 4 or 5 years, I get people all the time that go like, I never thought it would make that much of a difference.
I didn't either. I didn't, because I had Michelin tires on there, and I said, you can't get any better than Michelin tires, but they were 4 years old, almost 5 years old from the time they were made. I had over 50,000 miles on it, and dadgummit, they just got rough riding. I did not realize it till when I put the brand new tires on there. It's kind of like, man, I just bought a brand new car. It feels completely different, and I was shocked.
Well, we talk about it all the time. The rubber compounds and things like that change, and heat is one of the biggest things. The tire heats up, cools down, heats up, cools down, and it makes the rubber and also the steel inside the tire harder, and some of the belts will shift over time. So, like I said, 4 or 5 years, it really makes a difference when you put a new tire on there because everything is soft and smooth.
Now, years ago, you talked about the milk law that they were trying to produce get out, and we called it the milk law. What it had to do is how they couldn't sell tires that were a certain age. Whatever happened about that? Did it fall away?
It fall away, just like everything else. They talked about it and talked about it for a long time, and then it just never appeared. The same with, you're supposed to register the DOTs for all the tires, and yes, the law is on the books, but it's very, I would say, it's not implemented. So it's on the books, but they don't know how to implement it correctly yet. So, all these laws sometimes take a decade or two to really work themselves out, which is too long.
Okay, well, now, the reason I brought this up, because we were talking about that. They were trying to make a across-the-board law or guide to show you that tires should be a certain age and not be on a car. Didn't you tell me that in Europe they have laws on the books and they enforce them that if you have a wreck or accident and the tires on that car are more than, I want to say 5 years old, you could be held liable?
Absolutely. And they're much better about all the things about the car. They have yearly inspections in most places, that you have to have good brakes, where, in the United States, especially here in Florida, we don't have that kind of inspection.
No.
And the tires are the same way. They will say, hey, your tires are 5 years old. You have to get a new set of tires if you want to keep this vehicle on the road. And also, like you said, if you have a problem where there's a tire issue, then yes, they could put the fault on you in that particular accident.
Now, we said that about you over in Europe. If I'm not mistaken, we've got California that's passed a tire law that if you bring a car into a shop for an oil change, just an example, and they don't check the air pressure of the tires and they don't note the condition of the tires, and an accident happens because of the tires, the shop that looked at it last could be held liable for it.
Well, you're right. California would have something like that on the books, but also, it could happen here in Florida. Realistically,
it does.
They go, well, you just looked at this car, and you didn't note that the tires were 6 years old, and he had poor wet traction and slid into another vehicle. I'm sure there's a lawyer out there somewhere that will come looking for it.
And they will. I've had customers come in my shop and say, I just want an oil change. I said, well, we're going to do an oil change inspection, and that's done. I don't want an inspection. I just hand them back their keys. I can't legally look at your car without inspecting it. Oh, wow, why not? Well, let's say you got a ball joint that's fixing to fall out, and I do an oil change, and I notice that ball joint's fixing to fall out, and I don't say anything to you about it, and I don't notify you and say this is a dangerous condition, and you have an accident. Guess who they're going to sue? And they'd always look at me and go, who? And I go, me. Because I'm the last one that looked at your car. We don't have safety inspections in Florida, and I guarantee you some deep lawyer is going to be looking for some deep pockets to pay some bills out, and that's how it works. You got whoever's got the most money and got the best insurance is going to get it, and normally it's the shop that worked on your car last.
Right, and a lot of times they look at the last few links in the chain, so you're the last shop to look at it, or the shop before that. Sometimes, they will cast the net and get as many shops or, places involved as they can to get money in a lawsuit.
Oh, we had a car come in the other day, running hot. We saw what was running hot, and we had a bad hose, and while we were at it, we looked at the car, we picked the car up, and the wheel literally almost fell off. I'm not exaggerating, almost fell off from the ball joint. It probably had 3/4 of an inch of play in it. Up and down, and then side to side was like 6 inches. And I told the customer, I said, ma'am, I cannot fix your car. And she said, why can't you fix my car? I said, because unless you fix that ball joint, I can't let you drive out of here. You're going to need to tow this car home or find another shop. So she sent a wrecker and picked the car up and towed it somewhere else. I told her I could not legally fix her car and let it drive out of my shop with that ball joint that bad. And she was like, well, I'm glad you did that, but I think that's a silly law. And I said, well, ma'am, you may think it's a silly law, but the lawyers out there think it's a wonderful law to keep people safe on the road out there. And I cannot fix your car.
Well, let's say that particular tire falls off and, you get into an accident. Not only have you endangered yourself, but also other people on the road. And that's really a lot of times what the law is for, is that you protect other people that you potentially could hurt.
Well, and that's not a victimless crime. People say, well, victimless crimes, libertarians are supposed to be against victimless crimes. And I said, yes, victimless crime, that is no crime. You got to have, someone's got to be a victim. I said, if you get in a wreck and someone gets hurt, guess what? There's victims involved. You can't take that chance. So please.
We see it every day about, repairing a tire. If we can't, correctly repair a tire, we can't put you back on the road. And people go like, well, I just put a plug in the sidewall. I said, I can't do that. It won't work. And if you have a blowout and somebody gets hurt, not just you, but somebody else, I could be held liable. That's culpable negligence. I did something that I knew I shouldn't have done, and I did it anyway.
Absolutely. If you don't believe this will happen, go ask a lawyer. I mean, because I've had lawyers that use me as an expert witness in cases. Going back 10, 15 years, I did a case in Mariana, I did a case here in Panama City, where they called me to testify what did I see on the brake job that was done by XYZ parts store in this town. And I looked at it and said, XYZ parts store just threw shoes on it, on wore out drums, adjusted them all the way out, and they came apart, causing the car to have no brakes, causing the car to have a wreck where there was a death. I said, I can't tell you that all I can tell you is the car didn't have any brakes, and eventually someone died. And that's what ended up happening. And they were guilty of only doing a partial brake job, even though the customer said he was fully aware that the brake job wasn't done correctly. And they held them to their feet to the fire and sued them.
Absolutely. Even if the customer says, hey, I see that you're not doing a complete job, and I'll sign that on the bottom of the piece of paper saying that, you still can't let the vehicle out on the roads.
No, here's something, I don't know if you see it as much. We got a few minutes here. Calipers. A lot of people, when they get over 100,000 miles, they just, say, look, you need a brake job, and they go, okay, pads, rotors, they expect that. But when you tell them you got to put calipers on it, they look at you like you're from outer space. Well, they've been on there for 100,000 miles and they're fine. I said, yeah, but they're not fine now. That's why you got one pad wore out on the inside and it looks brand new on the outside, or vice versa. I said, these calipers are sticking. I need rebuilt calipers. And sometimes that can get kind of pricey on some of these cars. But
but you're absolutely right. At 120,000 miles, it's time to do the calipers, the hoses, the rotors, and everything. Well, I just want to put pads on it. But then when, one of the calipers locks up and you can't steer the vehicle, or, it smokes so badly that you have to pull off to the side of the road, it makes you, really sad that you did not listen And you and I a lot of times just have the customer in mind to have a good experience and to be safe out there on the road. And I think that's the number one thing to walk away with, is not that lawyers control all of this, but we want you to be happy with your car and safe on the road.
That's the most, we like to help people. You and I both like to help people. We fix things. That's what we do. We solve problems. And when you're trying to do something that's halfway, you're not solving a problem, you're actually making the problem worse. And that's what people don't seem to grasp at the moment.
Well, I always say, hey, I would not do this to my own car. So why would I do it halfway to your car?
And that's so true out there. Now, as a Tire Pros expert, y'all do more than just tires. Y'all do brakes. Y'all do alignments. What are some of the other wheels? That's something I really didn't know y'all specialized in. But
we do a lot of wheels. We have, literally hundreds and thousands of wheels available to us. It's a lot of styles we can get very quickly, and some styles, we can have all the way from California within 2 days, and there's no shipping or anything like that, extra cost involved. So we have a plethora of wheels available for you.
You've been waiting all week to use that word.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to use a couple of other words, but that wouldn't be good for television.
I think that's so neat, though, that that you're able to get, because years ago that used to be kind of a niche market. Just a few shops had it, but now y'all are doing I think y'all do as well or better than some of these shops that just rent wheels or rent tires out.
Yeah, people go like, wow, I want to get new tires, and then they get looking and said, man, my truck or car is 5 or 6 years old. I just want a new look. I can't afford a new car, but I want to do something a little bit different. So instead of going out and buying a $40,000 or $50,000 truck, usually for tires and rims for a couple $1,000s, you can get an entirely new look for your truck. And people feel better about owning an older vehicle again.
Now, speaking of trucks, did you hear about Ford is going to stop selling passenger cars in Canada and America?
Yes, because there really is no money in little cars, and they finally figured it out that 80 to 90% of their sales are trucks and SUVs.
What is 80 to 90% of the cars in your shop every day?
Trucks and SUVs. Sedans really have, they over the last 5 years have shrunk to where very few people own it. There's still Camrys and Hondas out there, but a lot of everybody wants a small SUV. Basically, I think 80% of the cars that we see are basically trucks and small SUVs.
Now, the small SUVs, we got just about a minute or so left here. They're only getting, I got a few SUVs here, all-wheel drive, two-wheel drive SUVs. They're only getting 17 to 20 miles to a gallon. Where the smaller cars like Corollas and things, they get 40 miles to a gallon.
Oh, yeah. People are willing to compromise to get up a little higher and have a little bit more room. But you're right. The average, even on a four-cylinder smaller SUV like my wife has, about 20, 22 at best. Yeah.
On a good day downhill with a tailwind. But it is amazing. But remember, we did the same thing, how foolishness. In the 74, when we had the oil embargo, we had those big 455 engines, and then all of a sudden Toyotas started coming in and people started buying them. Then we had the same thing happen around a few years ago, about 10 years ago, when the gas prices got high. People didn't want to buy the big cars, started buying smaller cars. Well, are we repeating history again?
Well, we are. We're kind of an in-between stage, though, right now. And within a few years, there'll be, hybrid SUVs that will get better gas mileage, or that are a combination electric and small gas engines, and all those things they still have to figure out. Even small diesels, I think, will be more of the norm within the next 5 years.
I think you're right, because I see Volvo going that way. I see a lot of the European cars going where they're going electric or hybrid. So that's a good point. Hey, we've been on way too long. I had a great time talking this morning. I want to tell everybody, come visit you. Give you a call first at 873-8900. You're there Monday through Saturday from can to can. You'll take care of people. You sell service, not parts and labor. I try to remind people that. And you're selling good service there.
Have a great week. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.